not all short-term rentals can also be like long-term rentals. It just doesn't make sense. I don't understand how people are able to keep making these decisions with no actual data in place. There's the assumption that all these people seem to be multimillionaires. They think we've got a housing crisis. Well, in a minute, you're going to have an employment crisis.
Holiday let owners in the UK are worried about tax changes, regulation, and how they're going to make anything close to a profit. On today's Host Planet podcast, we're focusing on Cornwall, one of the UK's short-term rental hotspots. Our special guest, Katie Warren, discusses what's happening on the ground, sentiment among owners, and what the government needs to do next to help our industry. This is an episode packed with home truths for our lawmakers, Keir, Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Listen up. Katie, thank you so much for joining us on the Host Planet podcast. Tell us about the impact of the furnished holiday letting tax changes in Cornwall.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. It's obviously been an interesting couple of years down here, and we've seen changes in two ways. One of the worst things is people actually just stopping holiday letting in general and then just keeping their homes empty. That's been one of the most negative impacts I've seen. I think they saw the cost changes, and it's not just FHL that really impacted them. It was also the changes with fire regs and knowing that capital gains was going to change. It's been a series of things that I think brought them to that decision. And some of them actually felt that just even paying the second home tax premium that came in for the council tax was actually going to be more cost effective for them rather than carrying on with holiday letting, which is a massive shame. And it's a huge impact for us down here because tourism is such a big part of our economy. And you've lost a house that had good economic value to now something that hasn't, basically. It's lost the changeover staff, it's lost the linen, the welcome packs, the maintenance, the window cleaner, it's all been cut right back. So it's a massive shame. And then on the other side, we have owners who feel really stuck with what to do at the moment because so much is changing. The property market to sell is quite flat. Things aren't shifting like they were. I think everyone thought it was going to stay like COVID forever in Cornwall. And actually it's done exactly the opposite, which was always going to happen, And I think people feel a bit stuck. So, they're carrying on. But I think the more regulations and legislation that keeps getting thrown at them, the more I can almost understand why they would say, why are we still doing this?
Just talk to me about the knock-on effects. You mentioned it a little bit in your answer there of a property when it goes from a holiday let to just maybe a second home, which is not being used. How does that affect local businesses and the local economy?
Yeah, massively. Because, a holiday let, it's a business and it employs a huge amount of people. I'm never quite sure that people understand how much one home can do for so many people in the local community. I think I made a list once just to put on Instagram to show people how many people are involved in our business and the management of the properties here, and we source everyone locally. So, you start at your basics of your housekeeping staff right back to, your accountants, your seamstress for the curtains, the maintenance man, the plumber, the electrician. It's all a massive knock-on effect. We call it economic leakage of how much that one property can feed so many other people here. So it's a massive detrimental effect when this happens, because the empty home or the second home that people use for themselves privately, they might say once in a while, can you come and check on it for us? Or, we've got a leak, can you come and do it? But it's not the same as a week by week management program that's there with really regular income that allows you to give people jobs on a full-time basis. And that's, it's a massive problem. I mean, I think tourism in Cornwall accounts for about 20% of the employment. So I think they say that 30% of households either directly or partially get their income from the tourism sector here. So if you start denting that, it's going to keep affecting all the other industries that are here as well.
Just explain to us the difference between an empty home, which is maybe being used a couple of times a year, and a holiday let, which is being used maybe 60, 70% of the time?
Well, you've just said it there. It's not used, and I'm sure that the whole point was that we were trying to avoid empty homes. I'm sure that was what this whole argument was about in the beginning. And the government have actually managed to encourage people somehow to have empty homes rather than keep them as short-term rentals. It's been a bit of a witch hunt there. So, an empty home to me, or a second empty home, is something that doesn't have the economic value. It hasn't got the regular people coming to it, because bear in mind, not only is the owner paying us as staff to look after the property and do all those bits and pieces, but the person who's coming to stay at that property, the tourist essentially, is then spending all their money outside in the restaurants, in the local attractions, and those things. So it feeds a huge amount. Empty home, no real economic value. They pay their second home council tax, but bear in mind, a lot of that won't stay in the county, and it won't be going to the causes that it needs to be going to. Your holiday let, it's paying such a huge amount of things, and I really think that needs to be taken more note of.
What do you make of the government saying, oh, we need to level up buy-to-let investing and short-term rental investing, and our goal is to make more properties available? Do you think these tax changes will help potentially first-time buyers in your area?
No, I think the government need to go back a little bit in history and have a realization that they caused the majority of this. Let's go back a bit. So holiday letting in Cornwall has been well established since the 70s and 80s. People have been coming here for holidays for 50 years. It's been an industry thriving down here for a long time, because Cornwall is a tourist destination. We've got some of the best beaches and seas, here in the UK. So it's not like this is anything new that's happened. Fast forward to 2017, and the government decided to change the tax laws on long-term rentals. So I think it was Section 24 under the Finance Act that they then removed people being able to put certain mortgages against their tax bills. So people who are investors, we have to remember they're business people, and they're going to look for how they can make a profit on running a property, because properties are expensive to run and manage. So therefore, they would have been advised, or they would have seen that it was actually better for them to move into the furnished holiday let market, because obviously we still had FHL available then. So if the government really wanted to level up, there's a whole other way of things that they could do. And it's interesting that they say that they want to do that with levelling up with short-term lets and long-term rentals, because even now they're still restricting it even more. By bringing in the Renters' Rights Bill, that's causing a massive problem, particularly down here with private lettings. I speak to agencies who saw more people being evicted before this came in, because owners were so worried they weren't going to be able to get their investments back when they needed to. Then it's just... not all short-term rentals can also be like long-term rentals. It just doesn't make sense. A lot of them just won't ever work in that way. And you're also asking people who are in holiday letting to almost change to go to private rental without realising it's a completely different business. And I don't think anyone should be forced into doing that. So,
if Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer were here, what would your message to them be about FHL?
Well, speaking for most of us in the industry, I wish that legislation would stop being made before they've got statutory registration in place. I find it unreal that laws and tax changes are being made when we don't even have the actual data of what's happening. And it's something that we've all been fighting for in the industry for, 8 years or so now. I've had my business for 13, and it's definitely been something we've talked about for a long time. I don't understand how people are able to keep making these decisions with no actual data in place, and to start removing the tax allowances and almost not recognise these short-term rentals as such important things to our economy. What they don't realise is that they think we've got a housing crisis. Well, in a minute, you're going to have an employment crisis, particularly in somewhere like Cornwall, because it's the rural and the coastal areas that are going to suffer the worst. Cornwall itself is built on SMEs. We thrive on it down here. And if they start to well, they haven't actually, they already have started to chip away at it, it's going to end up with a lot bigger problems, and there will still be a housing crisis at the end of it.
If we carry on as we are, with all the current circumstances and regulation and, fire issues and all the rest of it, EPCs possibly being the next one, where do you see the industry going over the next 5 to 10 years in Cornwall and across the UK?
Well, I think we're in for a bit of a tough ride. However, if there's anything I've learned about our industry is that we're very adaptable. And what I have seen more in the last 2 or 3 years, since really the wave after COVID, when I think we were being accused of being responsible for the housing crisis, is actually a lot of us in the industry have come together. There's been more collaboration than I've ever seen, because I think everyone's actually a little bit fed up. I think they're fed up of being accused of causing this mess. And I think we can actually prove that there are far more positives to our industry than there are the negatives. And we're all starting to get data ourselves rather than even relying on government anymore. We're now starting to get the facts and figures so that we can present them with a lot more consultation. I think the key is that we have to keep fighting. So no matter what things are thrown at us, and obviously EPCs potentially being the next one, is that we all have to continue to collaborate. I think we all have to keep sharing our data with each other. I think we have to try and rally as much support as we can, and hopefully that will continue to make a difference.
HostHub is a top-rated property management platform for short-term rentals. HostHub can help you increase revenue, improve operations, and ultimately save you time and money. HostHub has everything you need to manage your properties effortlessly and reliably. It will sync rates and availability across all the channels where your properties are listed, and it includes tools like automated messaging, team management, and expenses. It also includes smart pricing integration, task and cleaning management, and automated door locks. HostHub provides a zero double booking guarantee, 24/7 support with an average response time below 3 minutes, and a fresh and friendly interface that is easy to learn and use. And right now, HostHub is offering a 14-day free trial to any host or property manager who would like to try the platform. Head to hosthub.com/HCH for further details. Do you feel there's a real lack of understanding really about the short-term rental sector and the impact that it has among government and politicians? And also following on from that, do you think there's an assumption that kind of everybody who owns a holiday let is a very rich and wealthy person? And is that something that you see, or is the reality a little bit different?
No, I think, starting with the first half of that question, yes, I think there is a massive lack of understanding. And I think, unfortunately, certain media outlets have really portrayed us to be, the big bad wolves of this whole scenario, but with no actual factual evidence behind it. And that's a real problem, because I think we need to keep working together to change the narrative. And I do think that's happening. I think more people are starting to talk and understand it. And I think actually the more we do keep talking and explaining things, the more we can actually change people's perception of it. And the statutory registration showing how much work goes into a holiday let with the health and safety, especially if they're run professionally, they're the safest places you can come and stay. So I think, yes, changing the narrative and the understanding is really important. And then in the second half of your question, again, I think in the aftermath of COVID, there was a lot of hostility because everything was clumped together as a second home, regardless of whether it's a holiday let, regardless of whether it was a student let, regardless, people didn't seem to separate it. It was just a second home was an Airbnb. That's the other thing. They're all just clumped under the same title of an Airbnb, and people don't seem to differentiate between, we manage a lot of boutique agencies down here, and they have completely direct bookings, for example. But everyone got clumped into the same thing. And I think people definitely have a lack of understanding when it comes to what the difference is between an empty second home, a holiday let, all those as we've talked about already. And then there's the assumption that all these people seem to be multimillionaires. So first off, I'd like to say that I don't think I've got one person in my portfolio that's a multi-millionaire. I've got a lot of people who have set up these holiday lets as their pension funds because a lot of them are self-employed or they've run their own businesses. I've got some people who inherited family properties and they just don't want to part with them and they keep them as their family homes. We have some young families who I think have poured all their funds into buying this property that they want to enjoy with their family as they're growing up. It's a complete mixed bag of what there is. And of course, there's some investors out there who have portfolios, but that's no different if they had student housing or if they had something else. And the other thing, and I've often done this exercise with people, because where I'm from in Falmouth, we have a huge student market down here. We've got a really big university. And people don't seem to put the two in the same, whereas I'm like, trust me, at the end, they've both still got owners. Let's go through the figures. By the time I've worked out the profit difference between what a HMO has and what an STR has, the HMO, trust me, does much, much, much better because there's hardly any work that goes into it in comparison to how much money goes into a short-term let. There is not a massive profit at the end of it. And I have to go through that sometimes with clients who are setting up STRs and they don't yet know about fire regs. They don't know about how much goes into running the holiday let, the costs that come with it. Now you haven't got the FHL, so obviously your taxes are going to go up each year. They don't understand the day-to-day running costs of a holiday let and also the amount of work we all put in to running those properties.
Yeah, it is tough and it can be difficult to make much of a profit at the end of the day, that's for sure. What's the sentiment among your owners at the moment?
I try and keep them really positive, but often I feel I'm the bearer of, here's another survey. Would you mind filling it out? So I've had clients, I have clients who have been in holiday letting for 20 years. They've been with me, since the day I started, but they would have been with other people beyond. They're frustrated. They're finding breaking even particularly hard at the moment. I think they're slightly resentful that we follow every health and safety compliance to a T, and that there's plenty out there who don't. And I think that's something that all of them would be more than happy to have statutory registration here tomorrow and happily pay the fee to do it, to know that we're all on a level playing field. I think frustration is like the main word, but they keep going because they haven't actually really got anywhere else to go. They can't sell at the moment because the market's a little bit flat. We've had second home stamp duty increase and it's about to go up again on the 1st of April. They don't want to go to long-term rental. They need it to still wash its face, and they're invested in it, and they want to enjoy it. So they know they've just got to keep going, and we can only hope that the more we keep campaigning and we keep lobbying and sharing all our information, that we will have a better outcome at some point.
Provided statutory registration comes in, and it sounds like it is going to, do you think that will level things out a little bit? Because potentially some bad actors who are not all playing by the rules will drop out of the sector, and that might create opportunities for the people who are playing by the rules and stick with this.
So that's up to the DCMS, and they need to make sure that they don't just do a really soft touch statutory registration. If they create something that's literally you can just sign up, say, yes, don't worry, I comply, there's my £50 or whatever, it's pointless. And when we recently had a Visit Cornwall Tourism Summit down here, and I openly said that to DCMS, if that's what you're going to do, it's just pointless. I wouldn't even bother spending your money on creating it. We've got to have a tougher approach where your documents need to be uploaded and they need to be done, with your gas certificate, it should be done annually. It really should. We should be able to show that we have met every single requirement that they've asked us to do, and that we are a legally operating business that's here providing health and safety for guests, but also for staff who work there. And with that, I hope there are going to be a lot of rogues that drop out, and I'm hoping as well with the HMRC intermediaries, there's a lot of people who weren't declaring things that they're going to start stepping away. But people also find loopholes, and they're being allowed to find loopholes. And that's definitely something that's got to be addressed as well for the benefit of all of us.
We'll wait to see what the government comes out with. Zeal works with holiday let owners across the UK, helping them pay the right amount of tax and not a penny more. Zeal's team unlock tax savings for holiday let owners on the purchase, refurbishment and construction of holiday let properties. Zeal's experts also provide advice on a wide range of tax matters, including VAT, stamp duty, business rates, capital gains tax and more. Call 01633 287 898 or email hello@gozeal.co.uk to get in touch with the team. You can also visit the website for further details, gozeal.co.uk. Just before we get on to our questions to finish then, Katie, just tell us a bit more about Fixer Property Management and what you're doing down there in Cornwall.
I'm originally born and bred from Cornwall, from Falmouth. And I did my degree in law, James. Can you believe it? And then, much to my parents' dismay, decided I didn't want to practice in law. Got a job from uni and then didn't quite know what I wanted to do. So I did what most people do in Cornwall and disappear on a super yacht because, why not? And while I was away, I absolutely loved how these yachts were run. They were so immaculate, and the way that the staff ran them. And I was there on watch, in the evenings, coming up with these ideas because I always knew I wanted to come home. I think when you're brought up in Cornwall, you're really spoiled. You have a lovely, lovely upbringing down here. And I thought, gosh, wouldn't this be something great to apply to holiday lets? And back then, the whole property manager, it wasn't massively in existence like it is now. Airbnb hadn't really hit the market the way it has now. It was a lot more, had spareroom.com going back to when I first was starting out. So I came back to Cornwall. I remember flying into Gatwick in the freezing cold snow with a pair of flip-flops in from the Caribbean and thinking, right, how am I going to get this going? And I'd planned out what I wanted to do was offer something to clients under one roof, absolutely everything, of running their holiday home so that they didn't have to deal with the electrician, they didn't have to deal with the plumber, they didn't have to worry about the changeover stuff. Welcome packs, I know, I'll source them all locally. And I was very, very lucky because I'd grown up here. I had a really, really good contact list to start off with. So I started approaching agencies that I felt had the properties, the portfolios that I really wanted to manage. And I was really, really lucky and got given some fantastic properties with brilliant clients. And it's the clients that employ me, not the agencies. The clients employ me direct. And we do absolutely everything for them and their properties. And I'm still very fortunate that I have got a lot of the existing clients from day one still now. And then since we've evolved, we do a lot of help with the buying side. So, for example, I'll often get people who say, we would like to purchase a holiday let. What do you recommend? And I really value that service because I don't know about you up at your way, but during COVID, some people were buying things that should not ever be STRs and holiday lets. They were buying in the complete wrong areas for an extremely large amount of money that was never going to do the returns. So I really work hard with clients to make sure that we find them something that's suitable for short-term rentals on a long-term basis so that it's going to work for the foreseeable future. And I go right through all the rates to their costs, working out the returns so that they don't have any of these horrible surprises anywhere down the line. And I think that's been a really valuable service for some people. And then we get them all set up for them, do all the health and safety, all the compliance, and get them marketed with our right agents. So we've got a lovely team down here. We've got about 15 people who work for us in the office, and then all our trades. I'm very, very passionate about sourcing everything locally from Cornwall. I often spend extra to do that, but I personally feel that's better because I like to give back. And yeah, we'll just keep going. Like I said, I feel it's just a case of adapting each time when there's a new challenge. And, when business is good, I think it's one of the best industries in the world to work in. It really is.
Especially down there in beautiful Cornwall. All right, Katie, we've got a few questions to finish. Your favourite brand in the STR industry?
So I've got two, so don't tell me off. And also they're probably going to be a little bit different from other people's because I don't actually do bookings myself. I look at, people who are really helping us across the sector with the campaigning and the lobbying and things. So one person I've met who's been incredibly valuable to me and the work they're doing is Sally Henry at Key Data. So Key Data, I think, is being incredibly helpful with us starting on this data journey. And when I've been asked to write articles and submit things, Sally and her team have been absolutely brilliant at getting me the data I need for Cornwall specifically. So I really, really hope they continue to grow and get us the data that we need. But my second person is you, James, because it's been, since you've started, more people are coming to the table. And I think opening up and talking about the situations that affect us. And I think with the backlash of COVID, a lot of people stayed quiet for a long time because it was such a topic that caused, it caused anger with some people. The housing, it was a very, there was a lot of emotions involved in it. But I think since we've been able to have these conversations, I definitely think the narrative has started to change. And I think what you've been able to do by bringing a lot of us in from all over the country and Europe and everywhere else, it's really helping. So, yeah, you're my other.
You're very kind, Katie. Thank you so much. And yeah, great shout out for Sally and Key Data as well. Sally's not too far away from me in the north here.
She came to Cornwall last week. So we had a great
I know really she was there with Andy at Beach Retreats, wasn't she? Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, who's also brilliant. Andy's also fab.
Yeah, okay, some lovely shout outs there. Okay, then the final question then, your number one piece of advice for owners concerned about FHL and all the other challenges that we've got to deal with.
I think it's to keep going and keep challenging. But also now is time that you really need to look at how your holiday let is working. So reach out to discuss rates, first of all. Where are you pitched against everyone else in the market? Where are your holes? So, for example, if you haven't booked August yet, it's a problem. So what do we need to do? Let's see what else is going on around you at that time. Check your marketing and what's being done. I look at things like, do you allow dogs? Because dog-friendly holidays are huge in Cornwall and you get a lot more bookings if you allow dogs. So start thinking, right, can I allow them? Because personally for me, I don't think they're an issue when it comes to cleaning or changeovers, anything like that. Can you change it to do more short stays? Can you offer more weekend breaks? Can you be a little bit flexible more on your timings? Is that something that your changeover staff would accommodate as well? Can you push more direct bookings? At the moment, if you're using certain platforms, could you actually start to think for the future, is it another way for me to bring in, more business? Always work out how you can adapt to the situation. And I think for any owners, you just need to talk to either your property managers or to your agencies direct and go on, just keep going. That's also my advice.
Fantastic advice, I think. Katie, thanks so much for joining us on the Host Planet podcast and enjoy the rest of your day in sunny Cornwall.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Great to chat to Katie Warren there about the situation in Cornwall. I hope a few members of the government were listening to that. Thank you also, Katie, for the lovely shout out. If you're looking for more free education, head to hostplanet.club, the fastest growing multimedia platform in the short-term rentals industry. We're proud to help hosts and property managers supercharge their businesses by sharing a wealth of free content. Head online to sign up for our newsletter, download our suite of ebooks, and listen to our podcast series. Until next time, happy hosting.